People are so precious now. If it's not easy and they're not making money instantly, they're out.
It depends on how their upbringing was. As agents, we come into this industry with high expectations. We get some activities and we expect to get rewarded for it. That's where the disappointment kicks in. You've got to put in the work knowing that the result will come.
And this is an important question for a lot of agents out there. Listen to this. How long did it take for you to notice a real change? The rewards started consistently coming back.
I would say...
So you've mastered the market, but now you want to start winning for yourself. I'm Daniel Lee. Some know me as real estate's funny guy, but in the Get Keen podcast, we get down to business and explore what gets people really keen, how to get the most out of your real estate career, how to build a successful business and live the best life for yourself and your family. We'll uncover how to be hugely successful in real estate, setting you up to get keen and make the next big move in your life. Let me tell you about today's guest. Do I have something special for you? We're talking about the 3-time Queensland Agent of the Year from REB and the national salesperson for the McGrath Network, Alex Jordan. Thank you very much.
Pleasure, mate. You've talked me up big time now. Yeah, thanks for the sizzle.
I like to do that.
Thanks for the sizzle.
For sure, man. No, I really appreciate your time, mate. This guy probably had to give up a listing presentation to be here. So
what a sacrifice. What a great sacrifice.
The sacrifice is huge. Mate, I have seen your career unfold in front of me because we're actually competitors in a similar market, not so much in the types of property and all that, but we work in the same areas. And came across you about, 15 years ago maybe?
Okay.
It's a funny story. We worked for the same business for about 10 days.
Oh, yeah.
I think we had one full team meeting and then it all kind of dispersed from there when it didn't quite work out with that takeover. So, but I met you throughout sort of selling and that sort of thing. And, you have an interesting journey. You really do. But first of all, I just wanted to ask, what did you do before real estate? Because I don't know that. And how'd you get into it?
So real estate wasn't an intention. I didn't sort of go through school and aspire to be a real estate agent. I don't know too many people who do, actually. So I sort of fell into it in a way. I was a struggling musician. I finished high school, grade 12 in 1998, and with a very bad OP. It was a high OP, which my dad actually thought it was a good thing. It was between,
Dad, I got a 25.
Yeah, he thought it was between 1 and 25, and he thought the higher the number, the better. But because he was excited when he saw it, to explain to him that ain't good. So it didn't do very well in school. I was studying music during school. I got a scholarship to study jazz piano at the Conservatorium of Music. So I went into sort of grade 11 and 12 in a sort of half-assed sort of manner where I was doing school, not well, and then doing music as well. We were doing gigs around Brisbane City in nightclubs like Casablanca, if you remember back in the days, all sort of corporate events for big accountancy firms and Magic Millions horse race and all that sort of stuff. I was the keyboard player. It was a 6-piece band. We really struggled to make a living. It was a tough life as a muso. Our gigs, for example, on a Friday night, we'd do Casablanca. We'd get there at 2:00 in the afternoon. We'd set up all the speakers, do the sound check. It takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then we would go back for our sets. We'd do 4 sets, starting at 8:00, finishing around 2:33, and we'd get paid $100 per band member for all that. And we'd pack up our gear, and by the time we got home, it was like 4 a.m. for $100. So it was a real sort of not very sort of, I guess, there was no longevity in that career. We enjoyed it. It was fun, but I just couldn't live off it. So at that time, I thought, what am I going to do? I've got very little education. I'd grown up in housing commission, so I didn't come from any pedigree or could rely on sort of family connections to get into any special job. A friend of ours did own a car dealership, a used car dealership that sold low-end cars in Acacia Ridge in Beaudesert, on Beaudesert Road, which is called the Magic Mile. I approached him and I said, look, would you give me a job? And he said, yes, I'll give you a job, $100 a car, no retainer, no salary. $100 was the going rate for everything back then.
It sounds like it.
So I took that, $100 a car, And I was there for about 3 months, and then he tapped me on the shoulder and basically said, "It's not working for me. I need you to find another job." And that's because I was standing outside the dealership, not in the air-conditioned room. The buyer would come in, the customer would come in, I'd approach them, I'd serve them, and because I had that first connection, I'd get paid the $100. And he realised or thought that, hey, there's no need for this guy. The buyer was going to walk in to the office anyway. I would have done the sale, and I'm paying this kid money that I don't need to be able to pay. And I was getting about 6 to 8 cars a week, so I was making about $700 a week, give or take. At that time, I was reading real estate magazines and real estate section of newspapers like the Courier Mail. So I was fascinated by real estate, which is kind of ironic because now that I'm in real estate, I look at cars all the time. So it's just flipped around. And I noticed an ad, and this was an area that I never knew about. I've heard of the suburb. I grew up on the south side, living in Holland Park. And the ad was in Toowong, and it said, "Do you want to earn $250,000 a year, have great work-life balance?" Yeah, stitched up.
Big lie there.
Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." I called. It was Doug Disher. About 5 or 6 calls, emails. He would not respond to me at all. I just kept leaving messages. I knew he was ignoring me because the office would say, "Oh, I say, is Doug there? Oh, just one moment. Let me see if he's here." I'm like, "Well, I'm sure you know if he's there or not."
Playing hard to get off, Dougie.
And he didn't give me any attention. I got through with a cheeky text message, which was very cheesy, and he responded to the text and he said, "Look, you sound very persistent and you've been trying to make contact. I really wanted someone experienced, but come and have a chat with me." So I had to figure out how to get to Toowong. I took the Refidex, which is no longer in existence today. It's all Google Maps. And I found the suburb of Toowong. I didn't have a car, didn't have a suit, borrowed my dad's Mitsubishi Express van and wore the dorkiest suit in the world with a Mickey Mouse Donald Duck tie. It was bad. Baggy ass. Yeah. It was shocking. Not to say that I dress well now, but it was way worse. And rocked up to his office. He said, "Look, Alex, I don't have a position for you as an agent, but if you're happy to be the office assistant, I'll give you an opportunity." And the office assistant role involved putting up signboards for rentals. We used to take all our own photos. So I'd go take the photos with a camera, bring the SD card back to the office. They'd then upload it into the computer. Anything anyone wanted, dropping keys off, meeting tenants. And I did that for about eight or so months. And then he gave me an opportunity to get into sales. And that's where the real estate career started.
I used to sell in a shopping centre. My job was to every single person that walked past, just stop them, and I had to sell them an Optus home phone or broadband. That was my first sales job. And I didn't have a car then. Similar to you, I took an hour to get there. It was commission only, standing on your feet all day for $60 a sale. Sometimes there'd be no sales. And that job punched me in the face 1,000 times. And it set me up for real estate. Yeah. I really think so. Yeah. And that's a bit of a shame these days. Like, I feel like people are so precious now. If it's not easy and they're not making money instantly, they're out.
Yeah, it's a generational.
Do you feel that with the younger generation? Like, they're just not willing to put in as much? Like, not all of them. I can't generalize too much.
Not all of them, but I agree with that theory. I've experienced that too. It depends on how their upbringing was, I think. If they went through hardship and challenge during their childhood, I find that they're more willing to put the effort in, more willing to hustle, more willing to be rejected. They just have a better work ethic. But if they were in a more comfortable environment where everything was given to them, then they expect things that aren't realistic. And there's this sort of expectation of instant gratification. Whatever they do, they've got to be rewarded for. And that psychology does not work in this industry.
Yeah, exactly. You have to have that ability to serve and serve and serve with no promise of return.
Yeah.
Instead of having that instant, and that's what you were getting in the beginning. You're going an hour and a half to do a trainee role that didn't pay you money, but it was the learning. It was that I'm gonna be this one day, but you've got to start on the hard foot a little bit.
You got to start at the bottom. That's where everyone starts.
And great story. Going back to your first years in real estate. So you were an associate for a while, and obviously then moved into being an agent out on your own, as the normal sort of journey goes. I met you sort of I remember the first time I met you, it was around 2010. I was selling a house in Taringa. I think it was, do you remember when you came to the auction? Do you remember the one?
I don't. Which were? Do you remember
I'm just trying to remember which street could have been, it was off like Hillsden Road.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, up a hill.
Yeah.
And you had this old lady. You came to an open home of mine, and I met you for the first time there. I knew of you because we sort of worked in the same area, and you were bringing this lady along. And on a weekend, on a Saturday, to my open home, I'm like, "What the hell is this agent doing? Why are you wasting your time, mate?"
Yeah.
And, you know, you're helping her around, you're looking at stuff. And then you rocked up to the auction 3 weeks later and you were bidding for this lady.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, mate, Alex Jordan is wasting his time. That guy doesn't know what he's doing. I thought I was a bit of a hot shot at the time, you know. I was getting the wheels moving. I thought, this guy, he's spending his time on the wrong activities. Yeah, let's fast forward 10 years and see how that worked out for you. So something I learned years later was working with buyers a lot better. And it's something that you obviously doing quite early to, you know, set up that pipeline. And, you know, it wasn't the training I got at LJ Hooker where I was. The training I got there was focus on sellers, focus on who's selling next, you know, get in front of all the sellers. Don't worry about buyers. You know, they just come. Get the sellers. That's what the training was always. And so when I saw you rock up helping this buyer out, I was like, dude doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I probably didn't know what I was doing, mate. You're right.
But has that been something that's been consistent with you? And one of the reasons that maybe you are successful now is that you had a constant focus on buyers.
Yeah, look, I think in this industry, the focus is too heavily weighted towards sellers. And the training is still to this day, find the seller, the buyer will come to you, the property will sell as long as you've got the listing. So it's this very short-sighted catch and kill approach to real estate, which I don't think has very good longevity to build a strong business. Ultimately, the way we need to categorize people is not based on a buyer, a seller, or a tenant. This is the issue. I think we pigeonhole them and say, that person's a seller, I'll give them this level of attention. This one's a buyer, I'm going to not give them so much. That one's the tenant, I won't even give them anything. Really, the reality is it's the same person at a different stage of their life. Today they're a tenant, tomorrow they're a buyer. Today they're a buyer, tomorrow they're a seller. So it's more important for me to connect with them, build a relationship, be that trusted advisor. We don't need to get paid for everything that we do, and I wouldn't have conjuncted with you. I would have just come there as an agent.
You didn't.
But I was banking in a potential future client. So if they were successful and they won the property and they decided to sell, and everyone eventually sells, it was a long-term approach that I will get this listing back in 5-10 years' time.
Most big successful agents, a lot of them are successful right from the get-go. You know, even if they started as a rookie or whatever, they come in, they're the hungry, keen, on the bone every day, doing what they need to do. They're showing up to the trainings. They're mastering their skill. They're working really hard, all the things. And they're like, you can instantly see them from like year 1, year 2, you're awesome, like you're going to do great. And they continue. And then they get there, you know. Like a guy like Matt Steinwade was probably like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you got an agent like you, and this doesn't happen very often, I don't see it, is that, you know, really average for how long you reckon? 10 years?
I reckon 10 years of struggle,
10 years of struggle to then completely turn this around and now be the #1 agent at McGrath. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I don't sort of sometimes don't really think about it that way, but you're right. I struggled, and it was self-induced.
Yeah, tell me
why. For a number of reasons, mate. It was all me. That's the why. I started in this industry lost, without direction. I should have done better research. You know, when I started in real estate, I had the opportunity to go and speak with some high-performing agents, learn what they're doing, try and sort of pick up some tips and implement those. I didn't do that. I don't know why I didn't do that. I guess I followed my peers, and whichever office I was at, the standard of agent in that office was what I was sort of calibrated to. And I wasn't in a high-performing office. You know, the best agents within my office were maybe writing 200 GCI. That was like the top end. So for many years, I was in a bad position where I would do things wanting an immediate result I wouldn't get it, and then I'd change and I'd do something different. And I just kept chopping and changing. I tried so many different things. Ultimately, it was a poor business model, number one. It was a lack of belief after years of failure that started to psychologically impact me, and it made it harder to pick up the phone. That was something that became self-debilitating to a degree. And the turnaround came when I changed brands, and I joined McGrath about 10 years ago. And for the first time, after being in the industry for 10, 12 years at that point, I looked at the business in a different light. I noticed that some of the agents within the McGrath Network, based in Sydney, were writing $2-3 million of GCI, which was unheard of in Brisbane. There was hardly anyone doing those numbers 10, 15 years ago. But these guys, different to me, were looking after a very tiny patch of homes. I was looking after St. Lucia, Toowong, Taringa, Indooroopilly, and most of the units, I was stuck in the apartment world at the lower end of the market. And interestingly about this industry is whatever you put out there, your digital footprint will attract a similar client to what your profile looks like. So your profile on REA domain, social media, is like your resume, and you're going to attract a similar client to your current listings and sales. And I was stuck in the unit world at the lower end of the market. When I saw that these agents were doing $2, $3, $4 million GCI and they only had 2,000 homes, I was in a 20,000 home BDA, and I wasn't doing it consistently. I would do one letterbox drop, and then it cost me a fortune. I couldn't afford to do another one for a couple of months. It was very catch and kill. There was no attraction agent model about it, and I had to completely sort of shift and do a 180. And when I started to narrow the BDA, when I went from 20,000 homes to a quarter of Indooroopilly, which was about 770 houses, I was able to do consistent communication, quality content. So I put in good quality stuff in the letterbox. I started doing market reports. So we went very narrow. We became consistent. I did it frequently and started to get a little bit of market share, and that then snowballed. That was the biggest change. One opportunity came. Interestingly, I was selling all these units for 150, 200, 300,000, get a beautiful testimonial from the client. But when they came to sell their own home in the same area that was worth $1 million plus, they'd never call me. And I'd be like, wow, I thought I was really good. I thought you liked me. And so I'd call them, and sometimes I'd ask, look, respectfully, I just wanted to see any feedback for me as to, why you decided to go with the other agent, just curious so I can improve myself. And the general feedback was, oh, Alex, I didn't think that's the sort of properties you sold. Like you do lots of units, and if we're selling an apartment, you'd be our guy. But so it taught me a lesson to, be careful what you put out there. If you want to be in a higher end market, you can't be putting lower end listings in your profile because the consumer will assume that's your specialty.
Oh man, you just took me back to many times in my career where people just ripped my heart out.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking industry,
isn't it? The worst is when you've sold for them before and then they don't give you the more expensive one.
Yeah,
it's happened to me, bro, many a time. So the strategy that you took was really refining that and being consistent. I like what you said there. It's, not just refine that area, but being very consistent with that as well. Would you say that's like a real key?
Vital.
Yep.
I think you've got to look at yourself as a business, you're an individual, but you've got to look at yourself as a business. How will the consumer, who is the potential vendor that lives in a particular geographic precinct, how will they know who I am? How are they going to know me? And then if they know me, what will they think of me? So the content that you put out, the quality of what you convey, whether it's on social or on digital, will govern the opportunities that come to you. And if you go out there and you act like a hero, I don't know if the community and the general consumer responds well to that. I think in our industry, we're not loved by the general community. I mean, on the ranking of most trusted professions, we ranked right at the bottom, close to, I think, prostitutes and politicians, which is an embarrassment. But it's a reflection of some of our actions and behaviours. So it's important how you convey yourself to the community aligns with your personality. You don't have to fake it. But be careful with what you put out there because you're being watched and you're being assessed and you're being judged. So frequency is important. Consistency is vital. Persistence is really key. Be ready to be rejected. How do you increase your rate of success? You increase your rate of failure. So those things I had to really train myself. It sort of goes towards the stoicism mentality, the Stoics, and I think the way they lived, and these guys were around thousands of years ago, and some of the words that they convey that I read are so true to this day, like the way you live your life. And as agents, I think we come into this industry often with high expectations. We're excited. We get some activities, we make some calls, and we expect to get rewarded for it. And that's where the disappointment kicks in. This is not an industry that's going to give you instant gratification. You've got to be trained to accept delayed gratification. And you've got to put in the work knowing that the result will come, but it may not come for a year or two. And that's psychologically difficult for some to accept.
100%. That's really, I think, the reason why most agents don't make it is they're not, number one, consistent, and number two, persistent. Like they give it 3 months, they're not already, gaining market share, and they lose their first 3 listing presentations when they have 0 market share. They get completely beaten up by it, and they say, I'm not good enough, and they leave.
Yeah.
I actually think that I really do believe this. I believe anyone can be a successful real estate agent.
Yeah.
I mean, I really believe that. If you don't, there is an element of natural ability in a salesperson for sure. Extroverted people are probably going to find it easier in the beginning and that kind of thing to build rapport and just get out there. But I really believe that anyone who is consistent and just does the activities that they know they should do, you can be very successful in real estate, make a lot of money, no matter who you are. I really believe that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it also is influenced by the quality of your conversation with people. Are you adding value to the conversation? What are you saying? The old school approach of asking for something every time you make a call does not bode well in the long term. So we don't pick up the phone and say, do you want to sell your home, or would you like an appraisal? That sort of stuff I think can work, but it's a real hit and miss approach.
Yes.
It's more, let's give them something that's relevant to them, that they might be interested in. Let's build a relationship and then be on the shopping list when the time is right.
That's the important thing. 4 out of 5 people know an agent that they're going to call when they come to sell.
Yep.
It's all about just being that agent, and hopefully the only one that they're going to call when they think of selling.
Yeah.
And not enough is put into, from a lot of the agents that fail, I'm talking about, not enough is put into getting that into every single person's head within a confined area as quickly as possible, and then maintaining it in their head.
Yeah.
This really comes down to that, right?
Yeah.
So talking about that consistency and persistence in the one area, right? You had to condense 700 homes. You said, so you've changed brands. You've gone, right, I need to strap up the boots and kick myself in the ass and actually do something better than I've been doing for 10 years. This is what I'm going to do. This is your strategy. These 700 homes, I'm assuming they were expensive homes.
They were, yeah.
You knew where you wanted to go in that arena.
Yeah.
And then just market reports, door knock them all, call them all. What did you do?
Did it all. But I guess if I take that back, there was a pivotal moment in my life where I changed the way I approached work and life to a degree. I had a health diagnosis in 2011, which was really confronting for me. I've got a couple of autoimmune diseases. One's Crohn's, the other one's called ankylosing spondylitis, which is a spinal disease that makes you into a hunchback, which I am stooped over and I'm struggling to move my neck and stuff, and it's starting to become sort of visible. And I went to the doctor, to the specialist, and he said to me, I think you need to get out of the industry to real estate because you're not going to be able to drive a car in 10 years' time. That was in 2011. He goes, you probably won't be able to tie your shoelace either. This is based on all the x-rays and MRIs and stuff. And it was very confronting. Like, I knew that I had a disease. I knew I had issues, but I didn't think it was that serious. Like, I didn't. Time was never a precious commodity until that day.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm going to cruise, and I had aspirations of being successful, but I procrastinated. It was always this attitude of, oh yeah, I've got to do that. I don't feel great today. I'm going to do that tomorrow when I feel a bit better. I think I have better energy. I'm going to try it then. And this procrastination was the way I lived my life until that day. And it was an instantaneous moment. It was like a spark in my head.
Wow.
And 2011, you would remember the floods hit Brisbane. It wasn't a great market. I was financially broke. I had a poor sales business. The floods exasperated the difficulties. I didn't make any money hardly in the year. I had no money in the bank. I couldn't afford my rent, and I couldn't afford my car repayment. So I went to my parents, who have no money, by the way. They were borrowing against their mortgage to live for 20 years. And I said, hat in hand, can I borrow $5,000 in 11? And as they do, they gave it to me without question. And that bought me a bit of time to pay my debts. And at the same time, I thought, this industry is not for me. I've tried this for now 12 years. I've given it everything. I've door knocked, I've cold called, letterbox dropped. Whatever I was told to do, I've done, but I haven't made it. So I'm not capable. So let me find another job. I need to live. I've got a wife. Soon I was getting married. I hadn't been married, sorry. Soon we're going to have kids. I've got kids coming. I can't live here in this industry anymore. So I was looking at opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry as a sales rep, which is somewhat ironic because I'm not a big fan of pharmaceutical industry at all, to be quite frank. And I don't want to go into that conversation. But if they had offered me a job for 80 grand or 100 grand, I probably would have taken it then, because I wasn't making 80 or 100 grand. I made 60-something thousand dollars in 11, which a lot of it was outgoings, because running a real estate business can be costly. And that diagnosis, when I went in to see the specialist, from that moment on, he said 10 years. So I said to myself, I've got 10 years to make this work. I took it literally. He was probably warning me like a solicitor tries to sort of condition their client by saying, oh, you might get 15 years in jail, and the client gets 5 years, and like, oh, thank you so much. So it's sort of this conditioning exercise. But I took that literally. I thought, shit, I can't drive. If I can't drive, I can't work. So I've only got a few years to make this happen. From then on, everything became a non-negotiable. I had a fear of rejection, and everyone does, and probably to a degree I still do. But then the fear of not being able to function in life, not being able to work, that trumped my fear of rejection. So I found a greater fear that made the other fears really non-existent. And that's when the attitude changed. So it was a shift. The next day, I just went, fuck it, I am going to smash it. And I was psychologically down. I didn't even tell my wife what the diagnosis was. But that energy, which was anxiety, to be honest, I channeled that to just hustle. And that helped me a lot because I was anxious. It wasn't feeling good. I'd wake up at 4 a.m, cortisol's peaking. I'm thinking, shit, my life's in a mess. But that energy I was able to use, even though it was a very negative energy, and channeled it towards just hustling and hard work. And that was the pivotal moment of change in my life that I needed to make way earlier, but it took hitting a mini brick wall to make that change. And if I hadn't had that diagnosis, I don't think I would have made that change. I would have been failing just like I did for my first 10 to 12 years in this industry.
That is such an incredible story. Thanks for sharing that, and a terrible thing to happen to you to then turn something bad into great at the same time. But man, imagine if everyone could have that moment that you had that you just said, but without a terrible diagnosis. I'm sorry.
I don't want to wish that on others.
I mean that the light bulb moment, right? Imagine if you could walk into a center and they could go, you want the light bulb moment? It's just 20 grand, thanks. And they stick you in a room and then you think you're going to be murdered or something.
You'll come out
and then you come out and just the next day you're just this absolute machine. Mate, there's a business.
No,
that happened to you.
It happened, and at that moment, Dan, if you said to me, how's your life? I would have said, man, it's shit house. I'm not in a good place. I've got only a few years to work. I'm in trouble, mate. I'm not in a good place. However, on reflection, probably the best thing that could have happened to me from a career point of view.
For sure, yeah.
So, the old saying Tom Panos uses, the best gifts in life come badly wrapped. That was one of those moments for me.
Absolutely. The perfect example. So that happened, the diagnosis, attitude change, now you got a new lease on life, you're doing the hustle. How long did it take? And this is an important question for a lot of agents out there. Listen to this. How long did it take for you to notice a real change? The rewards started consistently coming back.
The rewards took me, I would say, 12 to 18 months to start to see. The change psychologically happened immediately, I had a vision of where I wanted to get to, and I was committed to it. So it was just, everything was a non-negotiable. It became a life of zero procrastination, which I live today, meaning that if I have to make a call, I make the call before I think about the call. I just ring the number and then I'll have the conversation. Before I would analyze it, overanalyze it, spend 20 minutes thinking about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to manage it, what if they say this, and then I probably wouldn't make the call anyway. Now it's just instant, bang, this is going to get done. How long it took? Probably about 12 to 18 months, and it was one opportunity that made the difference. I was trying to get into this pocket of Indooroopilly near the golf course. There was a listing that was on with another agency, with Ray White, that had not sold. I ended up door knocking it, and the guy said, look, yeah, come have a chat with me. He had a business in Indooroopilly shopping centre, a coffee shop. Went and sat with him. It was a 3-hour meeting. I've never sat there for that long, 3 hours. And he did 90% of the talking, and that's the way it should be, the 80-20 or 90-10 rule. And he said, I'll give you a chance. I didn't have any listings in that area, had zero market share. That one opportunity, I got the listing, I door knocked all 770 homes with the just listed. I sold it in 3 or 4 days. I fluked it, and then I called the Courier Mail, and the vendor said, yeah, I'm willing to take a photo. He took a photo with me in front of the house, shaking hands. It was in front page of the Courier Mail, sold in 2 days or something. And then I printed that out. I then door knocked the same 770 homes with the result. And one more guy was about to sell. He's like, come have a chat with me. I'm thinking about selling. That was it. Like, that one moment was the change in direction that I needed. And then from then on, every sale I success marketed. Mm-hmm. And slowly, but very sort of certainly, I became an agent of choice, where people thought, oh, okay, this guy's now selling a few here. Let's give him a call. And that just became the business model that I then amplified and scaled to the neighbouring suburbs. So similar concept.
And it's just leveraging off that first opportunity, you know? Like, It always starts somewhere. You always get that first big break, but you don't get that big break unless you put in a hell of a lot of effort to just get that one opportunity, you know? And so there's so much going in to get that one little opportunity, and then using that to then find the next one and the next one and the next one.
It's a stepping stone, and that changed the career, my direction of my career anyway.
So 12 to 18 months was where the rewards
started to come. Yeah, I'd say probably 18 months to 2 years is when there was a bit of momentum, but it was 12 to 18 months after 12 years of effort. 12 to 18 months it took.
I reckon there's going to be a lot of agents listening to this that are agents that are doing quite well, and, you know, they've got past that hump, that first couple of years, and they're doing well. And I remember being at this stage, but I want to hear what you think. Because it took me a few years to figure it out and talking to the right people who turned it around for me. But I was at a stage, and a lot of agents at a stage where you're doing quite well. You know, you're very busy, but you've been at the same level for like 3-4 years, doing sort of, I don't know, 300 to 500 now. And you're not, and you might have an assistant or something, but it's just you're not getting past to that next level. And what do you reckon's usually the thing that holds those kind of people in that spot?
I would look. There could be many things. It's probably they're in comfort mode. They're cruising. They're just doing the same thing that they did last year. And if you expect to get a different result, well, that ain't happening. So you've got to reinvent yourself, and you've got to evolve with the industry. So if you expect to double your business or improve your business, then you've got to have a different approach to what's been happening for the last few years. We can't continue on the same path and expect a different outcome. So what are we going to do to get there? Like, we've got to assess their issues. Most frequently, when I speak to agents who reach out, I ask them, you know, if there was one thing that you could improve in your business that would help you make a change to your career, what would it be? More listing opportunities. I'd just like to get into more doors. So that's the number one thing. But then let's reverse engineer. How do we get more listing opportunities? We've got to create profile. And we've got to create a profile of credibility, a profile of success. And fortunately, in today's world, if you're an agent, you've got Facebook, Instagram, realestate.com, domain. You've got so many digital platforms to create visibility as to who you are and create a brand. When we first started, when I first started in 99, there was no realestate.com. There was no domain, there's no social media. And if you were wanting to find a home to buy, you would go to the agent's window, they'd serve you, hi, sir, come on in, what are you looking for? You take them to 3 houses and show them the one that you thought that was the best last as a strategy. Those days are over. Like today's new agent that gets into the industry will find it a little bit harder to cut through than when we first started. Because when we first started, if you had a suit and you could string half a sentence together, you had a chance. Today, your track record's so visible that when you come in and you've got 0 market share, 0 sales, 0 listings, you're going to have to really be hand on heart with the conversation to break through. And I find that joining a team structure is the option that most agents are taking on, so they can get some experience, get some profile, and then maybe they leave the nest in a few years and start their own thing. But to come in as a standalone, it can be done, but you've got to really hustle for it.
Is that your advice for new people getting in?
In general, yeah. Like I find that you could really fast track your career if you jump into a team that already has market share. You're going to meet buyers, you're going to meet sellers, you're going to hear the agents dialogue, their process. You're going to get a lot of IP in there that will take you years and years to find out for yourself. Your name will suddenly have profile. Your name, your face will be on REA, and as a second agent, you've suddenly just become an agent of consideration immediately, whereas it might have taken you 2 years to start getting to that point. So I do think there's benefit in starting in a team structure in today's market, where your track record and everything is so visible. Everyone can see what you're doing.
And also for the fact that you learn like if you just get thrown into a sales agent role, learning the steps to get a listing, it's way better to do that on a team than try and figure that out on your own. You know, actually, what are a real estate agent's activities every day, and what should I do to actually get an opportunity? Very hard to learn that without being in a team and seeing it firsthand.
Definitely, it takes way longer.
Yeah,
way longer.
How important is marketing in your business? I mean, you've mentioned the profile and how important that is to you. What do you focus a lot on marketing, or?
I guess I do, yeah. I mean, I invest heavily in self-promotion, particularly with printed market reports. I invest a substantial amount of money every year on those. I find that puts me in a better position in terms of my profile and my credibility within the community that I'm servicing. Marketing is really vital. I mean, if you're not able to market yourself well, then why would the vendor give you the keys to their home to market their property? So how you market yourself will be judged and assessed, and that will reflect on the vendor's decision on whether you're the right person for the job.
If you were, I feel like it's kind of easy to market yourself when you're in your position because you've got like 3 beautiful new houses a week to put up. What about agents that don't have so many nice looking properties all the time? What would you focus on if you were like one of those agents and you want to do social media and stuff, but you don't have a lot of great properties to show? What would you do?
Good point. I think at that point, let's say you come into the industry, you don't have much market share, you've got really nothing to showcase on social. So good question. What are you going to put out there? I think you've got to be the communicator of intelligent information on a consistent basis. So what I would do if I'm trying to build profile, I would do a face-to-camera video and do some market updates, just some stats on what's happening. So for example, let's say we're doing Toowong as an example. I'd be doing Toowong market update. These are the top 10 sales last year or top 5 sales. This is the growth for 2023. We were up 15%. 2022, we were up 12%. These are the number of sales every year for the last 5 years. We sold 16 homes then, 25 homes here. It's got to be information that the consumer would look at and be fascinated by. So you've got to be a little bit creative about the content, but face to camera, be the communicator of information. Then sponsor that ad on Facebook, Instagram geographically, so you reach the consumer within that precinct. And slowly you start to build a following. And from there'll be an opportunity that'll come, and then that opportunity becomes a stepping stone for another. So it is a bit of a slow grind. And you don't have to have listings to have good content. You just got to think creatively. We've got access to all these different platforms, CallLogic, Price Finder. The consumer, all this information to us seems pretty like standard and boring. To the consumer, it's interesting. They don't know all these things. They don't know how many houses are selling above $1 million in these suburbs every year, and that 10 years ago there's only this many sales above $1 million, but today there's this many. So cut data in a creative manner, communicate that in a sophisticated way. It can be raw. It doesn't have to be polished. The issue I find with agents is we procrastinate because we're trying to get this perfect look, get the cameraman and all, digital 4K. None of that shit needs to happen anymore. Look at Kanye West's ad during the Super Bowl. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't.
Oh man, you got to check that out. So Kanye West spent $7 million on one ad. I think it was like 30 seconds during the Super Bowl. It is the worst quality ad I've ever seen in my life. It was filmed on an iPhone in the back of a car as someone's driving. He had no script, no dialogue. It was dark. You could barely see his face or the car. And all he said was, we're selling some shoes, Yeezy.com, Yeezy.com. And that's it. That's what he said. He said that literally, that's it. And ended it. He just sold $19 million worth of shoes after that. That's today's marketing. It's raw, it's real, it's on the spot, it's live, doesn't need to be polished. So most people waste time, procrastinate because they're waiting for the cameraman. Get an iPhone, you've got everything you need at your disposal. You can buy a little roadie mic, you can buy a gimbal, everything's there. It doesn't have to be polished. You can make mistakes. But people want to see the real you. They want to see the real person. They don't want to see the polished, fake.
Exactly right. And that's where we've seen social media go in the last 5 years, as it was very polished in the beginning and everyone wanted to have the nice stuff. But it is more raw now. It's off the cuff. The important thing is to have good sound.
Yeah.
The roadie mic.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the iPhones have pretty good sound from a meter or two away, but if there's a bit of wind or whatever, I see agents kind of like trying to do like, this suburb, blah, 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 and talking 5 meters away from the camera. As soon as that sound quality is low, no good.
You're gone.
But that really average video with good sound, I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
Like what you're saying is more important than what's
visual.
What's visual.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's so easy to get. Like they're not expensive items. You need an iPhone. Everyone's got one. Go get a roadie mic that clips to the shirt. And off you go. You can create whatever content you want.
Exactly. And if you're a bit of a whiz on Instagram, TikTok, the amount of editing, like things you can do to actually make it quite good. With a bit of practice, I mean, it doesn't take too long. You can put together some content that's pretty creative and cool and good to look at.
But you got to start it. Do it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. Get the camera out. Do it. Look like an idiot. It doesn't matter. Everyone's first video was cringe, but you'll evolve. You'll improve, and then in a year's time, you'll be in a position of greater profile than you have been any time in your career. That's a promise.
And that's why I think you're really successful, because it's a common thing I see amongst really successful people is not procrastinating. If you think of something that you want to do, you just do it before you overthink it and talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's immediate action. It's within 5 seconds of the idea, start taking action.
Yeah. That's
and interestingly, mate, I used to be of the belief that first you need your mood to be right, how you feel, before you take the action. So I had this the life that I lived was, if I'm not feeling great, I'm not going to do the call because it's just not going to go well. I've flipped that around, and I think it works a lot better the other way. If you want to feel good, you want the mood to change, take the action first, regardless of how you feel. Just take action and the mood will come.
Yeah. Taking the action will build your confidence and make your mood better.
Definitely. And then it becomes more action. More just self-fulfilling.
Yeah. Get addicted to the action. Get keen. Get keen on life. Get keen on action. So such valuable content here today, mate. I was wondering, what's your fee when you're up there you're selling some beautiful properties, a sort of minimum 2 mil kind of range and above. What's your fee when you're working with these people?
My standard rate is 3.3% inclusive of GST. We averaged 3.19 last year inclusive, and that's because we ended up doing a few deals, sometimes at the back end where we were close to a deal and there was a few grand apart, and we threw in just to close it. Some of them I did sliding scales on and ended up less than 3% plus GST. I ended up 3 inclusive on a couple. But 3.3 I've maintained on every sale price. $6-7 million homes that I've sold have all been 3.3. I do get pushback on that. Everyone says it.
Well, let's try that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, mate. Well, look, Alex, I do quite think you're a good agent. I've heard good things about you. You've sold a lot in the area.
Yeah, look, I want to sell, but your fee, it's just a bit high. I've had other agents around and I know this place will sell itself.
Oh, look, I don't dispute that, Dan. I think your home is beautiful. And I do think it'll sell by itself. However, for what price? I think that's the important thing. Because in my experience, every home can sell by itself. You don't really need a real estate agent. The home can be put online, the buyer will come, you could put a box at the front, they can fill their offer out, and off you go. You've got a transaction. But is that the best outcome that you can achieve? Not in my experience. I think the best person that you can have on your side to maximize your net position, which means after fees, is a good negotiator. That, for me, is the number one skill in this industry. If you partner with a good negotiator, the benefit it brings you financially is beyond half or 1%. I'm not sure what the other agent's offering, but I acknowledge I'm not the cheapest option. I'm assuming they're at 2%, maybe 2.2. So let's make that assumption without your feedback. There's a 1% difference between me and the other agent. Your home, we believe, is worth around $2 million. So that difference, if we can quantify that financially, is $20,000. That's a lot of money. I'm not going to downplay that. However, in real estate, $20,000 is gained or given up in a single sentence, in one conversation. And your agent's ability to defend value will reflect directly on your outcome, to the point where if they're a good negotiator and they're skilled at what they do, they would defend their own value a lot better than 2% plus GST. So for me, that shows a lack of confidence in their ability. Sure, they're cheaper on paper, but if we quantified what you'll get in terms of sale price, the difference between what we'll deliver and what they'll deliver is a lot more than 1 or 2%. In my experience, your choice of agent will influence the outcome by somewhere between 5 and 10%. And that's based on the way they market the property, the method of sale, the negotiating skill, how they defend value, and so on. So when an agent comes to me, if I'm in your shoes, Dan, and offers me a commission rate of 2% plus GST, I'm thinking this agent's probably not a great negotiator, because if they were, they'd know how to defend their own value. And if they can't defend their own value well, how are they going to go defending my value when it comes to negotiating with a buyer on sale price? So whilst we're more expensive on paper and the other agent appears cheaper, if you quantified what you'll bank, you'll end up better with us than the alternative.
You have a good argument there, Alex. All right, I'll consider what you're saying.
Keep pushing back, though.
I'll consider what you're saying, but I don't want to pay the advertising. I think you get paid enough, right? We can work something out. The other agent did offer 2.2.
Okay.
And I, I'm pretty comfortable with them. I don't want to pay the advertising. I think, with the value of this house, it's pretty expensive, and you're going to get paid well, and you're advertising yourself. Like, I'm helping you. Like, can you just put it online and do all that? And I'll if we can work out a fee.
Unfortunately not, Dan. I'd love to work with you, mate. I haven't paid for anyone's advertising for years and years, because it's not our process. But I understand what you're saying. Like, if we were guaranteed of an outcome that will definitely transact, then the agent's contribution towards the campaign has an element of protection in it. I don't really control your decisions. So whilst I understand you're looking to sell, and you seem very genuine to me, if I brought you an offer that was even beyond your expectation, you have the right, the liberty to reject it. You have the right, the opportunity to take it off the market with no penalty, and that leaves me exposed with a debt that really I don't want to be holding. So I'm not willing to contribute towards your marketing, but I can put together a campaign that I think would benefit you, and ultimately I can customize and curate the campaign to your liking. And what I don't want to do, Dan, is to cut the marketing down to the cheapest level to make it look like it's going to benefit you, but in reality I'm being penny wise pound foolish, where I'm going to save you $5,000 on advertising, and then we'll go to sale price, we'll miss a portion of the market, and we're losing 50 on the outcome. So for me, it's all about the result. If you feel that the other agent that's going to pay for the marketing will achieve the same outcome as I can, they're the better business decision, naturally. Look, if they're going to give you the exact same sale price but charge you $0 for marketing, I would go with them. But I would question what marketing they're doing, because when agents pay for marketing, I promise you it's not the proper marketing. It's cut back, it's taken off to bring it to its absolute minimal, because they don't want to be exposed to that risk. So what's going to happen now is they're going to say, yes, I'll pay for your marketing, Dan. They're going to do a half-assed marketing campaign. They're going to leave a lot of opportunity on the table. You'll still sell, and you might sell for similar money to what you want, but I think you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So you'll save $5,000, and you might lose 50 or 100. So for me, that doesn't benefit you in the end. Ultimately, my aim is to create a campaign that will maximize the outcome, and your decision should be made financially. And if that's the case, I think there's a better process than getting the agent to do a half-assed marketing campaign.
Okay, well, let's go with your suggestion then. I'll go with your marketing campaign and I'll pay for it. But I want you to refund me at the end.
It's not something that I've done before, Dan. Is your decision on agent based on the marketing and the sort of numbers there? Because there's a few moving parts here. Where are you coming from?
Well, I just, I want to do as well as I can. I think you get paid well for it at the end. I'm putting the risk up front with the marketing. So if you refund that to me, if we sell and it settles and you just take that off your commission, then, would you agree to that?
I haven't done it before, to be frank with you, and I don't want to be sort of dogmatic about anything. I want to be reasonable with you. I'll give that some thought. For me to give you that promise, firstly, I would need to see a commission structure that stacks up financially for both of us. So what I mean by that is I would look at an incentivized scheme where if the sale price is higher, then we can talk numbers that might sort of stack up financially. I don't want to make a decision on the spot on that. Your position is that you're agreeing with the commission rate, you're agreeing with the marketing, but you like a little bit of consideration at the end to have a refund on the marketing side of things. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
I don't want to be difficult, mate. Let me come back to you and see if I can design or structure something that would make sense. Obviously, you feel that I'm the right person for the job, and that's why you're giving me this opportunity. And I feel like I'm going to be the best person for the job as well. I want to be reasonable with you. I can't agree to that exactly, but let me give that some thought. If I can come up with something creative that gives consideration to what you're proposing, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I want to, if I'm going to pay for the marketing though, can you just give it a go off market first and see what you can, I'd rather sell it off market.
Okay. What's your reasoning for that out of interest? Because it's easily done. It's not an issue. But there's financial implications for that.
Well, you put a couple of flyers in our letterbox and you said sold off market, and I saw some sales that you'd done look like they got a good price. You just sell them off market.
The difficulty, though, in my experience, is off-market sale. You're dealing with a very small section of the market. It's a small buyer pool. It's the database of the agent. I've got buyers that would potentially buy this off market. I don't think that's a difficult process to achieve. However, it's really hard for me to sit in front of you and bring you an offer and say, Dan, that's a really good offer, because I really haven't tested the market. We're in a short supply environment at the moment. For me, the best option is let's get my database buyers that I'm working with and let's put them in competition with the inquiries from realestate.com, Domain, social media, and let's see who becomes the strongest buyer. Because to sell off market, we're saving $10,000, $12,000 in marketing. However, the outcome, I think, will be compromised a lot greater than that. And in this market, when there's very little listings out there and there are buyers lining up, waiting for new product to come up, you're better off putting it out there on digital, getting a wide audience to look at it. Let's put them in competition and see who lands on top. However, if your choice is to sell off market, as long as we're willing to accept the implications of a lower sale price, that can be done. No problems.
You seem to sell a lot off market though.
No. I'm selling about 150 properties a year. I'd say less than 10% are off market.
Okay.
So 90% are on market. And there are different reasons for the off market sales. Sometimes there's dynamics between a couple where they don't want the thing out there. Without going into detail, there are reasons for those. Look, if you decide that's the way you want to go, I can deliver that to you. But if I'm in your shoes, Dan, I'm going to focus on what's best for me financially. What's going to bank me the most amount of money, what's going to net me the best outcome. And there's no doubt in my mind that getting the database buyer and putting him in competition with all the other inquiries from digital will yield a better number than just going off market and direct to these buyers who have very little urgency to transact with us in an off market scenario. There's very little pressure. They don't feel threatened that someone else is going to snap it up. It's not even out there. I can deliver it, but for me, that's not the right financial approach.
Okay. And what about the price we're going to put on it? Because I want, you came in and your price range says 3 mil. There's no way I'm selling this for less than 3.4, mate.
Okay.
And I've got a mate in real estate. He doesn't work in Brizzy though, but me and him played golf the other day and he came in and he said, easy, this would get 3.5. And I know because that one that you sold down on the corner doesn't even have a pool. Mine's got a pool. And that thing, did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you sold it. Mine is definitely better than that. And you got 3.2 for that.
So 3.4 is the number you're hoping to get to.
3.4, I think it could get more. But, I'd look at serious offers in that region.
I mean, to pinpoint the exact sale price of a home is really difficult to do. I don't think anyone can predict where you will land exactly. I know the process to follow to achieve the best outcome. So I know what to put together in terms of structure and process to get there. Where we get to is hard to say for me, mate. Sometimes I've been in a situation where I had one in Toowong on Terrace Street. I said between 1.8 and 1.9. I sold that for 2.2. I advertised it at 1.8 plus, but I got 400K over what I quoted. So if 3.4 is out there, I'll find that for you. And I can put together a structure to get to that number. However, for me to quote you 3.4, Dan, I need to see the sales evidence to support it. And whilst I acknowledge your comments about the other house that had the pool, or you have the pool and they don't, there were some things about that property that did achieve that result for good reason. And that was because it was on a larger block of land. It did have a level backyard, which was more family friendly. So those things I think would have influenced the sale price of 3.2. For me to say to you 3.4, 3.5 or better, I need to see the sales evidence to support that. Whilst that's not out of reach, I would say that that's at the higher end of what's achievable.
I had two other agents come in. So I had my mate Mike,
Yeah.
and then I had another agent come in, and they said quite easily that 3.5 was achievable.
Interesting comment, mate. It's not a surprise to me, Dan, because in our industry, it's common practice to give an inflated figure at the listing presentation to impress you as a seller, to then sign you up and get the business. But then the process that those agents follow is after they've got the listing, they'll be talking you down within a couple of weeks' time, saying the market's just not there. I'd rather have the opposite approach. I want to have a very honest conversation with you up front. There's no limits to what we'll achieve, Dan. I'm not here to put caps on what's out there. But I want to make sure that what I say to you, I can honour and deliver beyond what I've quoted. So if 3.5's out there, we'll put a strategy together to get there. But I don't want to be promising 3.5 whilst the other agents have given you that indication. The sales evidence doesn't support it. And as you know, Dan, I've sold most of the houses around you on this street. I'm familiar with the product and I'd love to get you to that number, but I just need to make sure that whatever I promise, I can deliver. And in this industry, there's a lot of talk that doesn't get transferred into results. So to say to you 3.5 plus, I think is ambitious. And whilst we can have a strategy to get there, I don't want to be banking on that number without the sales evidence.
I really do believe it's there, and I want an agent that's committed to believing that, because if you don't believe it, then you're going to put that vibe out there.
That's a good point, man. Like when I put a home on the market, I don't have any limitations of what price I'm going to get to. We'll shoot for the stars. The conversation that you and I are having is very different to the conversation I'll be having with the market. What I'm trying to do, Dan, is to make sure that whatever I say to you, you can bank on. There's no limits here. I can show you so many examples of me quoting a number and getting way beyond it. And we can go through those case studies one by one. So I'm not saying 3.5 is not out there. I want to make sure that if we structure something, we get it right from the beginning, because the biggest mistake we make in this industry, with good intention, is we overcook the price. How do we overcook it? Where we're all trying to maximize outcome. So we're putting together a strategy that gets us the absolute best sale price. Sometimes we overcook that. We just go a little bit too far. And the implications are that we don't get engagement, we don't get buyer activity, we definitely don't create competition. We then adjust the price in months 2 or 3, then we get it right. But when we get it right after we've been on the market for some time, you never get the same response from the buyers. They're just not going to engage with you as they would have at the beginning. So the reason we're having this conversation is to make sure that I'm being honest up front. I'm not giving you things that might be ambitious or unrealistic. I'm on the conservative side when I price. But when we go to sell, I'll be the most optimistic agent that you'll deal with. So yes, if 3.5 is out there, we'll get there. It's more about, let's talk about how we're going to get to that number. Because ultimately, for you and I to sit here and try and predict price, it's futile. Like we might be at 3.6, I don't know, possible. But I just want to make sure that what we put out there in strategy is not going to limit the outcome. And that's why I'm having this conversation.
I get what you're saying. well, then I think it's pretty clear what we should do.
Go to the other agent, yeah.
My door is here, please.
Okay, yeah.
No, we are going to, I like that strategy. We'll put a price on it. And so 3.5's the number. So let's do it. Offers over 3.5 then.
I think to get to 3.5, Dan, I would suggest we dangle the carrot a little bit. So when you look at the properties that I've sold for 3.5, 3.6, and I can show you a number of examples, I've priced them at 325 plus, 335 plus, intentionally to get that engagement and create competition. Last year in 2023, the average uplift to what I quoted was 8%. So if I said offers over 3 million, I was trading close to 3.3 million. That was my average. My average days on market was 22 days last year. So for me to get to 3.5 or better, I've got to create competition. We've got to dangle the carrot, get the buyer enticed, get them excited. It's through competition that the price gets pushed beyond reality. But to get there and reverse engineering that process, we've got to be at a price point that gets the buyer excited, which means, Dan, that you and I will probably feel uncomfortable, because if we're comfortable with the price that we put out there, then likelihood is the buyer's not feeling enticed or excited. And if you want that outcome to be shooting for the stars, you've got to have more than one buyer engaged. So rather than 3.5 plus, which would limit engagement, limit competition, I'm suggesting we go 3.35 plus. I just did that on Botticelli Street in Fig Tree Pocket. I said 3.35 plus, sold after the first inspection, 3.5 cash unconditional. So it shows you that if the market is at 3.5 or even higher, we can get there with that strategy. But we want to make sure of is we don't overcook it, then have a one-on-one negotiation where they work down from that figure rather than up.
It's just that, like, you know, buyers, they always add 10%, you know, off the price. So, you know, that's the general thing, isn't it? Like, buyers will come in 10% under. So why don't we just try the offers over 3.5 or maybe even 3.6 just for a couple of weeks? Because as soon as they see that lower number, offers over 3.3, they're just going to come in 3.31. And I'm telling you now, Alex, I'm not selling it for that.
No, fair.
All right?
Fair.
Like, I'm not going to play this game. I'm not selling it for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you want to go and price it offers over 3.3 and then someone comes in at 3.31, tell them to get nicked.
No, I hear you, man. And look, I'm not here to pressure you to sell for any price, Dan. I want us to leave this transaction happy. I want you to be singing my praises. I want you to be impressed with the outcome. But I've got to follow a process that I know would work to get you there. So I hear you. We could put it on 3.5 plus, and ultimately I'll follow your instructions. You want to put it on a 3.6 plus, we'll do that as well. But if we're in a joint venture and if we own this property together as a partnership, my strategy is going to be put something out there that's going to maximize outcome. And I feel that by going on a 3.5 plus or 3.6 plus, we're not going to get the engagement we would. We're not going to create the competition that we need. And as long as you're willing to accept that, I'm cool with it. But if it was my home, if I own the home, I'm going to focus on what's going to bank the best price. And I reckon the 3.35 plus will get us there. But to your point, you mentioned that if a buyer sees a price, they're going to come in under or give you a fraction over, not much. And that's a very logical position. It's very rational. I think to show you proof of concept, can I send you my last 100 sales that I had a price guide on to show you what the difference was between what I quoted and what I achieved? That way, there'll be some clarity and hopefully confidence that this process works beautifully and it'll play in your favor. Because if we don't do it right, we're going to compromise the outcome. So would you be okay if I shared those results with you and you can see the pattern? Because when I say 3.35 plus, I'm not selling at 3.35. I'm selling at 3.5, 3.6. I did 3.25 plus at Fig Tree Pocket on another property, and I sold for 3.535. That was almost 300K over. So if I can get my average uplift of 8% on a 3.35 plus deal, you're in the 3.6 plus range. So that strategy works very well if we follow the process. But Dan, the more we deviate away from the formula, the more we sort of go against the proven formula or process, the less reliable the outcome is. So as long as you're willing to accept that, you're the guy that calls the shots. I'll follow your instructions. But if I'm in your shoes, I'm going to focus on what's going to bank the most, what's going to net the most, and that's creating a strategy that will get engagement and competition. And for me, that 3.35 plus is the right approach. But ultimately, your decision, mate. No pressure to do what I'm suggesting.
I see what you're saying, but you know, I'm just, you know, I just don't want to stuff it up with, you know, a good buyer who's from Sydney or something, Melbourne, you know, this here in Sydney, this would cost 6 mil.
6, 7, Dan. 7 maybe.
And well, they think this is great value, and it is. And Brisbane's booming. This is a bargain for them,
Relative to Sydney, no doubt, man. I agree.
So why don't, you're going to put the 335, and then what if one of these buyers comes in, they're just fixed at that number. I can just see that happening. I would do that. If I saw offers over 335, I'd just put a little bit over. Let's go offers over 36, couple of weeks, and then get that Sydney buyer, Melbourne buyer, maybe some Chinese money. There's a lot of people from China and Asia buying these properties right now, right?
Yeah, there are, man. A good point. You just mentioned something, Dan, that if you saw the property at 335, you're just going to go like 336. That's rational.
Yeah, because they don't know the market. And so you give it a couple of weeks, they make, because I had a mate who did that and he ended up cleaning up a couple of hundred more than what he wanted. Let's just do that for 3 weeks, month,
but
whatever.
That first 3 weeks is the most important to get right. Here's I guess, my position on that, because ultimately I've got to advise you as to what's best financially, and I'll be very open about it, Dan. When you said that you would offer 336 on a 335 plus property, that's pretty much every buyer's position. Like, people don't come to me and say, "Oh, Alex, you got 335 plus on there. Here's 3.5 million cash." It just doesn't happen like that. However, Dan, once the buyer knows that there's other interests, and this is what I'm trying to create, a multi-offer scenario, getting them up from 335 to 35 is a much easier process. But if I don't have competition, I've got a one-on-one negotiation, sure, but I'm not strategizing that way. I'm putting a range on it, a price on it that's going to get more than one person engaged. So ultimately, mate, whatever you're comfortable with is what we'll approach it as. But my take is that if you want to create competition and you want to maximize outcome, let's follow the proven formula. Before you make a decision, Dan, why don't I just share with you the past 100 sales from 2023 and show you the price guides and what we achieved? Because if what you're saying is what I'm experiencing, I shouldn't be getting 200, 300, 400 more than what I'm quoting on every sale, but I am. So the formula works, but I need you to see that so you've got some comfort and clarity around it. And if you still decide that you want to start at 3.5, then we'll go with that. But for me, Dan, if I put 3.5 out there, I'm trying to get to 3.8. And here's my challenge. If we put 3.5 out there and the sales evidence is shooting less than 3.5, we're not going to get multiple buyer interest. And to Sydney buyer that comes to Brisbane, no questions. Their house, same product, similar position, 7 million. But when they come to Brisbane, they're not comparing Sydney to Brisbane prices. They're comparing what else they could buy in the area. And there's other 2 listings on the neighbouring street. One's on a 295 plus. It's been on since November. They have not traded yet. I don't want to get into that situation where we've overcooked it and we're looking at each other in 2 months' time thinking, oh, let's get it right now. I'd rather get it right from the beginning, and the first 2 to 3 weeks is vital. I would rather say to you, Dan, why don't we do it right from the beginning? Get the price that I'm suggesting. And if it doesn't yield the right outcome, in month 2, we'll bump the price up and see what the reaction is. You're not obligated to take any offer. I can bring you 3.5 and you can say no, and I'll respect your decision. But at least we haven't overcooked it from the start and we haven't shot ourselves in the foot. Would you be open to that?
Look, I'll ask the better half, the misso.
She's just sitting next to you, mate.
Yeah, but she only speaks when spoken to.
Oh, gee.
All right, we have a great relationship.
Oh, man, ouch.
Okay,
We fought a lot there. There was a lot of fighting.
Huh?
We fought a lot just then. There was a lot of battle, like back and forward.
Yeah, well, I haven't signed the agreement yet, mate.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
I know,
so I'm keen, though. I'm keen to move forward. All right.
Get to roll.
Yeah. Jeez, are you always like this?
No, sorry, man. No, not normally.
I hear what you're saying. Look, we want to make a move, don't we, honey? Yeah. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Good.
Yes, we do. Look, it's just that Mary, she's private. She's a private lady, and me too. I don't want I hate those bloody McPhersons over the road and their kids. I know as soon as I open this bloody thing and get that online, they'll be sticking their nose in here, looking around here. I only want serious buyers.
Wow,
all right. So no, I don't want the sign out the front. Obviously I want the best price, but let's just do private inspections.
Dan, let's talk through that. I can deliver that too, man. It's not a difficult thing to do, but it's a compromise to you financially. And I'll explain why. Real estate is the only asset class that doesn't have a set or fixed value. Every other asset class, you want to go buy shares, Commonwealth Bank shares, there's a bid, there's an offer, that's the price. You want to buy gold, you want to buy Bitcoin, you want to buy copper. It's very clear what the value is. Real estate values are based on perception. Perception is influenced by presentation, how good we present the home for sale, promotion, how strong our marketing is. But one of the most important elements is other buyer interest. So when we have an open house and the neighbour comes through, and even if the McPhersons come through, sure, they're sticky beaks. I'm sure they're a pain in the ass.
You tell them to turn around and get back where they came from.
Well, I can do if that's your instructions. But my experience is, Dan, that when you have an open house and you get 20 neighbours through and you get 5 buyers, those 5 buyers that come in assume that all the other 20 groups are buyers as well. Now we've set a platform from that we can negotiate a much better outcome. It gives me leverage to call those buyers and say, Dan, you saw how much interest was in that home. So whilst all these neighbours are not going to buy your home, they're going to serve a purpose, a benefit to us when we go to negotiate with these other buyers that are genuine. So rather than have an approach that limits the outcome by doing private inspections and not sort of letting them see each other, let's create social proof. Let them walk in, see all the other interest. We don't care if they're neighbours. They're going to be threatened by that interest. That'll give me leverage to negotiate for you, and I'll achieve a much better outcome financially. But if you decide you don't want that, we can do it privately. But once again, we've got to accept that we're not going to get the same result. So if we go down that path, we'll feel comfortable, you'll feel less intruded, but you'll lose a little bit on the sale price in my experience.
You okay with that, honey? She's okay with that. So
thanks, Mary.
All right. Well, what's the next steps? Like, okay, 2.5%, and let's go.
Well, Dan, I think we already agreed on the commission rate, didn't we?
2.5%, wasn't it?
It was 3.3.
Oh.
3.3.
Okay.
But ultimately, Dan, you're not going to sign a contract unless you're happy, right? If I don't bring you a price that you're delighted with, that will bank you the number you're happy with, I don't expect you to trade. So let me do my job. Let me deliver you what I think the house deserves, and then you be the decision maker as to if you're happy or not.
Okay. Mate, you got the job.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks,
That was a good battle.
Holy dooly.
Mate, I should make that a thing, Battle of the Agents.
Wow,
and I'll just come in and I'm just going to be
You're
like...
good, man. You are good. You gave me objections galore, man, like everything.
From the heart.
Commission, marketing, access, off-market, private inspection, open houses. Oh, you gave me the
onslaught, the gauntlet.
You hammered me.
You don't even get, you're lucky if you get a listing presentation with everything,
True.
But you got to know your objections, don't you?
You do.
Handled brilliantly. Yeah. Guys, I think that's, we'll close it there. We've been, over time, but all quality. And Alex, again, really, really appreciate your time. I got heaps out of that. And I'm sure whoever's listening did as well. Awesome. And mate, continued success for you, mate. Get keen.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning into the Get Keen podcast. If today's episode inspired you, please show your support with a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And make sure you subscribe on your favorite platform too. Don't stop there. Join our community of forward thinkers by connecting with me on social media at Dan_Lee_Plum. I'm looking forward to exploring more strategies and insights with you on your journey to the top. Until next time, keep getting keen.